Today we're talking about a really important topic, and that is sleep. We really, really, really need to be very mindful and understand the importance of sleep in cortisol balance. We know that cortisol is a stress hormone, and we need it, but we also need it to be able to come, to regulate and come back down at the end of the night when we're going to go to sleep. So it's higher in the morning, lower in the evening when we're going to go into our sleep cycle and phase. So sleep is very, very important for detoxification, for rest and repair, to help all of our organs have a systematic, it's a finely tuned system that we have when we're sleeping, of detoxifying and rejuvenating and repairing our organs, like piece by piece by piece, through different parts of the overnight. So much is going on in our body. Our gut microbiome is repairing and restoring our brain, the lymphatic system. It's detoxifying from environmental stresses and byproducts of stress, so that left untreated, like if our body has any disturbance in this rest and repair phase, this is where we can end up with chronic disease in our body. So super, super important. Our whole endocrine system, all of our hormones are rest and repairing overnight. So we don't want to be eating things like, high processed carbohydrate, sugar filled foods before we go to bed, because that's going to increase our cortisol levels, and it's also going to impair that rest and repair phase overnight of the rest of our endocrine system, because the body will be working to try and overnight it's working hard again. It's meant to be resting and repairing and detoxifying, and now suddenly, because of what we ate before we went to bed, our body is now, and it's still working. We need it needs a break to be able to do what it's here to do. So there are a lot of things that we can look at, around, as far as this whole detoxification process goes. We've already talked about hydration through the day. Like, make sure that you're drinking plenty of water so that your cells are beautifully hydrated, and that your body is, and you're cleaning it from the inside, so that when we go to sleep at night, we're losing moisture just from respiration, while our body is also needing it to cyclically do all of the things that it needs to do to release the byproducts of stress and environmental toxins and anything that we may have eaten. Like, it's doing all of the things. So the less toxic load we can put on our body during the day, the more restorative sleep we're going to have when we go to sleep. So these are the other things, like drinking coffee or caffeinated drinks through the day will actually help. Will push your cortisol levels up, and then when we go to sleep at night, it's going to be really difficult, because you're still going to be in a very awake state. So swap things like that out for these beautiful herbal teas like chamomile, or hot water and lemon. Really nurture and nourish your body, especially going into the sleep cycle, because it needs all the help it can get to be able to do its own thing, detoxifying your body and reducing inflammation. So another thing that I think is really important as we're going into those sleep cycles, that we create a real like a routine around that. So let's we put it out, set an intention that we really need to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. It's really important for us, for this for our body and our organs to be able to do what they need to do overnight. We don't want to cut it short. And so to do that, we're going to need to, create an environment which is conducive to going to sleep, and having that restorative sleep. For instance, we want to reduce the screen time. So we don't want to be on our phones right up until the moment we, close our eyes. Have a couple of hours where you don't have any screen time. Maybe read a book, listen to some music, do some other things that's not stimulating your brain and still activating the cortisol when we're supposed to be, winding down into sleep. Look at the other things in our environment, like having a really dark room is really important for our melatonin, which is our very own sleep hormone, to be released, and so that we get restorative sleep. often little things like standby lights on devices and things like that can actually really disrupt your thyroid while you're sleeping in a room. It's actually, there's been a lot of studies around that, so it's something to really take into consideration. You know, have you got little lights on in your environment when you're sleeping that could be disturbing your hormones and interrupting this beautiful, rest and repair phase of our bodies. The other thing that we can look at too is some people need supplementation. I know that with my clients, I am very mindful about, what's their magnesium levels doing, because magnesium is a smooth muscle relaxant. So that helps with the central nervous system and going into that beautiful, rest phase. If you're going to look at any kind of supplementation as far as like to aid sleeping, I personally would avoid anything that is going to add, melatonin or valerian or any of those things. It's much better if you can find supplements that actually are, really clean and potentially, plant-based or, herbs that will help your body to stimulate its own melatonin. So this is what we want to restore, like get to the root cause. Why is my body not producing that? Let's look at all of these other factors, the environmental, the routine around sleep, and because these are all going to help. So that would be a last resort if you need, but I would look at the reduction in caffeine and the stimulant, stimulating your brain and things before you go to sleep. Resting your central nervous system is so important. Breathing slow, deep breaths is really important. Big breaths all the way into the belly, through the nose, and exhale slowly through the mouth. You can feel your body coming into a state of relaxation. So that is a really important one. And also meditation, or listening to, guided meditations, if that's what helps to get your body really into a rhythmical, breathing state where you're really starting to feel your body. You can feel it from the top of your head down to your toes. So this whole sleep subject is so super important for cortisol reset. It's one of the things that a lot of people, are waking up between 2 and 4 a.m. in the morning, because that's actually when the cortisol does start to rise naturally. But if you already have high levels, you're not going down into that beautiful REM sleep, that, rapid eye movement. This is where all the good stuff happens, mind, body, and spirit. It's all happening during those deep phases of sleep. And so if you've got chronically high cortisol levels between 2 and 4, when it's naturally coming up, you're going to get a profound, you're going to have an awake moment rather than just a lightening moment and then come back down into the REM sleep. So these are the reasons why balancing our cortisol levels are so important in this whole rest and restorative phase of our body, to let it do what it's actually, we have all the answers inside of us. We just bring a lot of toxic load and stress, and there's unresolved, there's trauma that we think that we may have dealt with on a psychological standpoint, and we develop good coping mechanisms and things, but really all that stuff's been held in our cells, and a chronically elevated cortisol levels is all part of that. So hopefully you got some good tidbits and some resources. I'll pop in the comments and in the files, and I hope that you have an absolutely beautiful day.